So, hello everyone, I am here in Lanzarote, which is a part of the Canary Islands for Canary Photo Week, which is going to be a new big yearly event. I'm here as one of the guides and we have come a few days before the actual event starts just to scout out the island, so we also feel comfortable about photographing here and guiding all the guests who come. So right now we are scouting at Famara Beach. We have some epic clouds and obviously we are going to have a flat beach, as you can see in the background, so we are going to have some reflections too. So we did get all the way out here to photograph this big cliff wall here behind me, and I did go into some dunes and photograph a little bit there, like with the long lens, with the wide lens, but I ended up actually photographing mud cracks, which was all good fun, like, you know, hitting rock bottom of my photography career. It's a joke. I actually enjoy photographing those abstracts. But we ended up here at the beach photographing these absolutely epic reflections here. I'm simply just putting on the wide angle and then I make a composition that looks something like this here, and then I walk into the composition with a 10-second timer on it. So it's the following morning and I returned to this dune area where there are all these different mud cracks. So the guides here at Canary Photo Weeks are myself and Kilian Schönberger, Isabel Tabachi, a good handful of Spanish photographers, and Mr. Thomas Heaton himself. So fun story, actually after last night's shoot I forgot my tripod. That wasn't really that funny. I really should make it into a habit forgetting my photography gear. During dinner, the conversation went on to what we have been photographing, and I told Tom that I had photographed some mud cracks, and when I showed them to him, he was like, so you show me those mud cracks and we can pick up your tripod. I was like, yeah. So how is it going with the mud cracks?
It's good, it's challenging. I'll be honest with you, I think your images that you showed me yesterday are better, because not only are you a better photographer, but you got dry conditions, whereas now it's all wet because it's been raining, so it's a little bit flat. You're losing the crispy dryness. Yeah, but other than that, you know, it's a perfect subject, and I'd be excited about this on any day of the week. So.
Yeah.
And now we're getting more and more light. It is starting to lift a little bit.
Yeah.
Good. Oh yeah, no, it's beautiful. When I come on holiday, I always make sure that I bring, you know, coffee, bring swimming shorts, and of course, I always bring the rain.
I am so happy I came to Lanzarote for photography, because had it been a vacation, I would have been pissed. It was horrendous vacation weather, cloudy, windy, rainy, and not even particularly warm. Actually rather cold from time to time. But as us crazy landscape photographers know, shit vacation weather makes for excellent photography. And as you'll see in this video, boy oh boy, that's exactly what we got. I did return to the mud cracks, with the participants a bit later in the week, where I actually did get a decent collection of these abstract shapes and patterns. Although they're not photos I'd put on my wall, it is highly addictive to explore an area like this and finding interesting compositions. It is actually a really good way to train your compositional eye. And if you struggle with composition, nah, just joking, you'll hear about the ebooks later. However, if you haven't seen Tom's video from Lanzarote yet, don't. There's nothing to see there. So we've come to this salt farm place, which looks quite interesting, at least from a more abstract point of view when it comes to landscape photography. And I would say there's potential here. So this is just about the closest I've ever filmed myself, like 16mm, but it's because I have absolutely no space to move on right here. However, as you can see here in the background, there may be a sunset. These clouds could see. And as you know, I usually always try to get myself some kind of focal point, a subject, and these windmills or wind pumps or whatever here does a remarkable job at that. And as you can see, I'm using all these lines here in these salt farm-ish thingies to lead towards that, and then I have the epic sky above. So the main thing I'm looking for here is simply just to find the right angle, put in the lines at the right place in the frame, and make a composition that actually works. So yeah, pretty simple, in theory. So this place obviously also ought to look amazing from the air. So let's get the drone up. I'm sure I'm getting something awesome here. A few days later, we returned with some of the Canary Photo Week participants, and also here we got a beautiful sunset. The volcanic landscapes of Lanzarote basically makes it into a mini version of Iceland, but with palm trees. During Canary Photo Week, we had for the first time for any photography group exclusive access to locations within the highly restricted Timanfaya National Park during the blue and golden hour, something not even local landscape photographers get access to. So sunrises like these are just so frantic when we're here in Lanzarote. The sun just like dips down so fast and comes up so fast, so we have like 2 minutes to get the best light. And it's impossible to both vlog and also get photos. So you'll just have this like afterwards. Right now I'm photographing towards the sunrise coming up here, and there's like layers upon layers upon layers. Looks really nice. So I've been using the long lens, and I've been using my 28 to 200 millimeter also. It's super simple, it's super minimal, very beautiful. I will also try to get some vista shots here. So we are at this little parking spot, so you can like walk around a cliff here in the background. And right now I come to the other side of that and photographing big vista right here in front of me. So as you can see here, I have like old volcanoes and then a newer lava field, some crack here, and I'm using this crack here as a leading line leading into this area here of volcanoes. It looks really nice with the sun coming in and lighting up these volcanoes. I also got a shot before without light or direct light from the sun, and we can always compare them afterwards and see which one I like. I think I prefer the one with light over the one without light, but not entirely sure. And that's about it from this place here. Obviously put on the long lens, zoom in and get a few detailed shots. But obviously when you are in a parking lot like this and a viewpoint, you are fairly limited in how creative you can be. That's how it is when it's super duper exclusive. Admittedly, the photos we got during the scouting were not too interesting for my taste. However, when we returned with the workshop, we got much better conditions. During morning, we got stronger light to light the craters and a more interesting sky in the background. However, it was during sunset I got my favorite photos from this location. Just look at that backlit sea spray and those colors. Yummy. So it is morning in Timanfaya National Park. We are at one of those other super exclusive places. We are actually down now from the mountaintop and photographing these beautiful desert-like black desert, very much like the Icelandic highlands areas here. We have some really nice shrapnel or some small bushes, something like that we can use as like minimal subjects among these beautiful sand dunes. Now what also happened was that we got an absolutely insane sunrise in regard to the clouds. So local clouds and a gap by the horizon that just lights up the clouds. Down here in Lanzarote, the sunsets and sunrises happen so fast, but this one here just keeps burning and burning and burning. I've been burning for like half an hour, and it's simply because even though the sun is way up behind the clouds, it's throwing its light down onto the ocean and then up onto the underside of the clouds, which looks really, really good. So I have been using the dunes, the sand dunes here as my foreground. They have some really nice curves, and it leads up to a background peak you can see right here, which then works as my subject. So dunes, 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 mountain peak in the background, and then a flaming red sky right there. Really nice. Now in regard to settings, I am at f16, and the reason for that is that I have to focus stack this one here. I'm all the way out at 100mm, so I'm taking one shot down here for the foreground dune, then one for the middle dune, and then one for the background. So even though I'm shooting at f16, I still have to focus stack this shot here. And for the background, I'm making a auto exposure bracketing. So I'll just take it down here. You can see I just put the 0 stops right here, so the average. So I'm taking one shot which is underexposed, so I get all the details in the highlights, and then I take a photo that is like in the middle, and then one that's a little bit overexposed, so I get all the details in the shadows. And then I combine all these photos in Photoshop. And that's also one of the things I cover in my course, Photoshop for Landscape Photographers. I go into focus stacking and I show how you can blend it together with exposure bracketing and all sorts of different other editing techniques that you need to learn if you really want to optimize your photography. And there's of course also a coupon code along with the link where you can get $45 off. Everything is down in the description. This specific photo turned out fine, but I do think it's the weakest from this morning. On the way back to the car, I also got this one as the sun peeked out and caressed the black sand hills. Ironically, one of my favorite photos from this trip is actually one taken at the probably most classic Instagram Lanzarote scene of them all, the road leading out of Timanfaya National Park. As with all road photos like this, it's important to be aware of the traffic. We made a quick stop during sunset, which side-lit the scene with the most beautiful golden light. So we have been hiking up the Black Mountain here in Lanzarote, and oh my god, it's so epic up here. So right now the clouds are lifting. We've been hiking up in like rain and low-hanging clouds, and it's just been like miserable and be like, is it worth it? We don't know. And suddenly the clouds just start to clear and dissipate, and you can still see we have some out here. Looks really, really, really awesome. So I've been shooting on my Sony A7R5, And I have simply just been like zooming in first with my 100 to 400 millimeter, but then I wanted a little bit more range in the wide end. So I put on my Tamron 28 to 200 millimeter. So in that way I can shoot at like 28 to 200 millimeter, that goes without saying. But what I'm doing is that I'm actually incorporating many of these small plants that we have here in the foreground. So I'm doing that to create a little bit more depth in my scene. So you can see an example right here. So I want to shoot this background crater out here. There's some nice light on it. And then I simply just compose my photo. So I have these plants or rocks or whatever in the foreground. Now, it is super important to remember to keep the balance. It's something we have talked about quite a lot here on Canary Photo Weeks, when I try to educate people on composition. Really find the balance of your photo. It's a little bit hard to see on the back here of the screen, but I really want to make sure that it doesn't feel as if the photo is falling to one side or the other. Of course, make sure you have a focal point, which is quite obvious, the crater there in the background, and then use these foreground bushes to create depth and frame the lower side of the photo. On top of that, depending on where I'm shooting, I can also cover up the road that is down there. So since you are obviously not at Canary Photo Week and you are not getting all the different presentations from me, Thomas Heaton, Isabel Tabacci, Kilian Schönberger and all the other, then you can get my 2 ebooks if you want to learn more about composition. There are 2 free light versions if you want to check them out first. The ebooks are very easy to read, no matter if you're a beginner in English or not. Plenty of photos to show what it is I mean. There are links down in the description. And as always, thank you so much to all of you who actually get the ebooks. It helps support the work I'm doing. So yeah, I'll get a few more shots before we head down and get to breakfast.
A morning like this is one where you'd usually stay in bed, but as we've concluded on this channel so many times, it's about getting out, being in the elements, walk up that mountain to stand in the clouds, suffer through the bad weather, questioning your decision making, and then when you're just about to give up, the magic happens. I really like the photos I got this morning with the low clouds among the craters, and one of my more unique photos was this minimalist black and white photo of palm trees partly covered by the low clouds.
So we are on our way to the destination for the last sunset of Canary Photo Weeks. We still have tomorrow's sunrise, but we are going to a place called the Red Mountain or the Red Crater or something like that. And when we park our car, we have like 1 kilometer to go. It's just about like taking out the camera, putting on a good lens with a good amount of focal length range. So I'm using my 28 to 200 right now. And it's really all about how the light interacts with this beautiful barren landscape. Right now the clouds like spread out, so we get a lot of like dappled light. Just looks absolutely stunning with like a lot of small green bushes on these like cratered moon landscape. So good, so good. So we made it to the top of the Red Mountain, and I've been photographing here towards the sun. And I've tried to use some of the bushes I have here in my foreground. So I'm incorporating them into the composition just like I did this morning. So I have something like this, and then I have these mountains here in the background. Now my biggest struggle at this specific location is that I'm shooting with my 28 to 200. And I'm doing that because I need to shoot a little bit broader than 100 millimeter to get the composition that I want. However, this lens is not super good when it comes to flaring. So I'm going to have to be a little bit inventive. And I put my hand where the sun is. So I'm actually shooting part of my hand. And then I'm simply just going to clone it out and blow out the sky. I have no clue if it will work. I've never done that before in any photo. But yeah, let's see.
I actually did manage to capture a photo with a good composition and lighting where the lens flare wasn't too bad. So I just went with that photo and it turned out great. We returned the following very windy and partly raining morning. We had our eyes on a small break in the clouds along the horizon, and when the sun hit, everyone were ready. As much as I do like this photo with the sun coming out from behind the clouds and the curves in the foreground mountains, it was a bit later, photographing in the opposite direction, I got the photo of the morning. I love this photo, the subject and especially the clouds in front of the rainbow. Just wow. Also be sure to give both Isabella Tabacci and Kilian Schönberger a follow on Instagram, and here's also a list of all the Spanish-speaking photographers who hosted this week. Throughout Canary Photo Week, the guides also made several presentations and we arranged some photo feedback to the participants. The week ended with Canary Photo Awards, which was a fun award ceremony with beautiful photos and cocktail gala party. It was a packed program throughout the week, but we did manage to sneak in a bit of leisure in the pool where Tom and I found the best yet also weirdest designed water slide in Europe. It was so much fun. Be sure to check out the links in the description of the video if you want to learn even more about editing and composition, and check out Tom's video from Lanzarote. It is actually really, really funny. See you next time.